Hi, welcome to Transitions. I'm your host, Antoinette Zloty. Today I have some interesting people who are going to be discussing generations connecting. And first, one of my guests here is Victoria Omelime Udo,
Yes.
and also Frank Indome.
Yeah.
And we hope that you'll find this interesting and join along as well and enjoy our conversation. So let's get started. Okay, first of all, I'd like to start about your own personal experience relating across generations. So how about if we start with yourself?
Okay.
Victoria?
My experience, I don't have a lot of experience in life. However, I do remember seeing there's different roles each generation plays in a family. So, but in terms, I've always seen it from the perspective of being a mother and a woman and being very caring and nurturing. And that's in common throughout all generations.
I see. So in your family, are you the middle child, the first, the last, and how many siblings?
Oh, yes, I'm the middle of 8.
You're the middle of 8.
Of 8, yes.
Oh, okay. And so are your grandparents then still alive?
Oh, unfortunately, from my father's side, I didn't get to know them very well because they had passed away when I was very young.
Yeah.
And from my mother's side, my granddad just passed away very recently as well. So now I just have my grandma.
Sorry. Yeah,
which is
sorry
nice.
to hear about your losses, but certainly that's one of the first experiences we have with intergenerational, relations is right within the family. And how about yourself, Frank?
So I'm from quite a large family. That is, I have 6 siblings, and I'm a grandfather myself. I have 4 kids, and the first one has 2 boys. One is 6 years old, one is 3. So yes, I can look through the generation that is from my grandkids through my children, myself, and then siblings to my mother. I had some interactions with my grandparents before I traveled out. So I have quite a bit of experience with regards to this generation gap and what all that is in between.
So what I'd like to share with you is, and our guests at home, is that for me, I'm actually right now enjoying the fact that I have as many siblings as I do. Mm-hmm. And within the marriage of my mom and my dad, there are 5 of us. And we have formed almost like a little team that really supported my mom in her elder years. And my dad had relocated back to Barbados. So, but, we still, of course, had contact with him and so on. Now, generations too, I did happen to get to know my grandparents, which was on both sides. And of course, they're all gone now because all of us kids growing up are now seniors. And so we have actually had an experience right from childhood to what it's like now as seniors, going from one generation to the other, starting off in another country and then here. But what I am particularly interested in knowing as well from you is outside of the family unit then, and let's say the work that you're doing on the job and you're still employed yourself as well. I'm a retiree. We're having different experiences. Do you find that there's a big challenge in the workplace with getting people who are in different generations to relate to each other?
I would say yes. However, that might be the standard answer because you have people that are different, right? I must say I haven't been in the workforce very long. I just got fresh off university. All my life I've been in school, and now I've been working for a few months now, and it had surprised me, but the older generation supports the younger generation a lot, almost as a sort of mentorship. So that's been very encouraging to see.
You're seeing that in society, not necessarily just at work, but
Yeah.
in general, you're seeing that.
Yes, I must say I am an immigrant to Canada, and it's very different how we view elders here versus back home. But underlyingly, there is respect for the older generation.
So, what country
Yes.
were
I-
you born in then?
Well, I come from the big city of Lagos in Western African Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
It was, let's see, I was born, raised there, and then I left, let's say 5 years ago at the age of 17 to come to Canada in pursuits of a university degree.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am now.
Nice. That's very good to have you as among our great mosaic here in Winnipeg. And how about yourself outside of the family unit? How are you interfacing with different generations?
Well, with work, okay, so my background is into information technology. What I see is the young ones, they always seem to be in a rush to get things done. And so, yeah, sometimes what I wonder is, where are they running to? Where are they rushing to? Because they want everything done so quick and then they're off it. For me, I'd like to sort of work my way through things, sort of think through it in a more critical way to make sure there are no stones unturned and things like that. So I sort of try to get them to slow down a bit.
One of the observations that I'm making is that the generation that I'm from, and the baby boomers, we actually were born to parents who had to work really hard to look after their children, and work was a very, very important thing. Education and work and leisure. The generation after us is like, make sure you get a job where you're going to have a good retirement plan. Mm-hmm. It's good to have good health benefits, but also a good retirement plan. And so when you try to then transfer what you've learned to the next generation, I'm finding that they're looking for leisure. I want to see some leisure now, not necessarily when I'm 65 or 60, and I'd like to actually retire at 55 or 50. So it's a different perspective on the whole attitude towards the work environment. And in terms of getting things done, I would think that a lot of people want to get things done to move on to something of leisure. Okay. So yeah. I think that I'm wondering if leisure is coming in there.
Yeah.
If you were to sort of take a look at society at large, do you see some other things that are happening in society, though, that the younger generation have a really positive attitude towards, that the older generations really, they didn't even get the exposure to diversity like what is happening now? Do you feel that the attitudes in the younger generation happen to be broader or more inclusive? What do you think?
I would say that it depends on everyone's environment and upbringing. Some people go through harder trials than others. But I would say that my generation grew up with the internet and technology, and we grew up with it. It's part of our lifestyle. And one thing with social media, people always show the best of what they can. So that's our environment. We grew up not seeing reality, which was having to find a good job, steady retirement. But we grew up seeing people on vacation, you know, pictures of their pets, cat videos, very joyous, positive things. And we want to implement that in our lives, I find. So that's why most people would say, well, the reality of things, most of us work 9 to 5. Can I at least retire 55 so I can observe some of these things I've seen in my youth?
Okay, I do agree with what Victoria just alluded to, and I see that with some of my children, and I also do some work within the community, and I'm seeing quite a number of youth with that attitude, and yes, they're trying to sort of, in some cases, get everything out there using social media and things like that. Again, for us, the older ones, it's okay. It's based on the experiences that we've had in our bringing in our life to sort of take a step back at some of these new technologies and new insights into how life trends, and sort of take a pause and really think through them before we sort of get into some of these things. There are a few, in fact, for me personally, because of the field in which I am, it's not too surprising because I also help sort of with my line of work, help build some of these tools that the youth are into. So for me, I have a sort of a better understanding of it because some of it is being pushed by those in technology making these things happen. And fortunately, it catches on with the youth. And so we're sort of bringing them on to make use of these tools.
And certainly because of their comfort with technology, I imagine that opens up a lot of opportunities career-wise too, because they're growing up with it. They don't have to now learn it in the context of a new job and so on. So if you had to think about one thing, let's say that you did, and I could start with telling you one thing that I did in my lifetime, and that actually still has an impact now, an impact on others and on myself. Okay, so then I'll start. Okay, so when I was just 22, back in '77, I started the Barbados Association of Winnipeg, and I worked together with a couple of elders who are now would have been younger than me, than what I am now, and I regarded them as elders, right? And to put that together, because a lot of people were coming from the Caribbean to Canada, and there were organizations popping up here and there, and we thought, well, here's a good way. It's a kind of a way of bringing people together from the same island and the same country to celebrate culture and so on, and also to meet each other and support each other. And then here I am in my retirement. I've found myself very involved with that same organization and helping to bring my skills that I learned in social work and in policy and program development as part of my social work training and experience, and I'm bringing it to my volunteer work as a senior. So it's interesting as a youth, and now here as a senior, and this is a great sort of connection back for me. Also, I have a Canadian culture that's operating, and our kids love the country that I'm from, and my husband loves that country as well. I just regret that we didn't go to Ukraine years ago. And the Caribbean is always the best destination for holidays, and so we'd pack the kids up and head there. But I sure wish that's one regret, that we didn't take our kids to the other side of their cultural identity. So let me go back to yourself. What would you say is something that happened in your life, say as a youth, or even 10 years ago when you were still a youth?
Okay, so well, I'm going to tap onto the cultural aspect that you mentioned, and this will be more so with my kids, in that in their upbringing, we did not sort of teach them some of our local languages. So yes, they were born outside of Ghana, where I'm originally from, and they're not that fluent in the local languages that we speak. That is, yes, between myself and their mom, we do speak the local language, but they just hear bits and pieces of it, and they can't. I see some families that have thrived to get that across, and their children can speak some of the local languages and things like that, which I see to be very good. So in terms of regrets, that will be one big aspect which I think I should have done better with, in terms of the upbringing of my kids and getting them to learn some of the local languages that we have, which we did not do very good at. Yeah.
And how about yourself?
As far as my upbringing, I had, well, you know, kids, we have almost zero control over what our circumstances are. If I could have pushed a little bit more for my parents to perhaps share their culture with me, that I feel like I wouldn't need to, you know, take lessons in my cultural heritage, for instance. Do you know my mom actually speaks 5 languages? My dad 2 different languages, and I only speak English. So I would have really wished that they would have shared that side of me, because now that I'm older and my parents are older, there's almost that barrier between us, because my mom would ask me, well, why would you do that? That's not how I raised you. But then, or that's not our culture. But I'm like, well, that's what we're doing here in Canada. That's you know, what I am associating with. So that would have been what I would have hoped to see. But who knows? I'm very comfortable with my life right now.
Yeah, well, that's great. And you have a lot of years ahead of you. And a lot of opportunities will come up where you'll make a difference in the community, I'm sure. And, but the thing is that oftentimes what we can do too is look at what do we feel might be a really good thing within society that could happen that will help people across generations. Can you think of something that might be really helpful across all generations?
Okay, so yeah, I'll take a stab at that. So in terms of my community work, the organization that I'm with has recently started getting into running these programs. In fact, they're intergenerational programs where they bring together community members and get them to play board games. These are board games from Africa. There are several types of board games from Africa. So they bring them together weekends and then teach them how the games are played, the rules and things like that, and try to get them into some competition. They've had this a couple of times. I think there's one coming up next weekend. And there's that enthusiasm between the youth and the elders into how well they can play these games. And during those sessions, a lot actually does happen in terms of the interactions, the communication, and then the learning experiences, where you see these elders trying to bring the experiences that they have, and the youth coming in knowing they could actually beat them with some skills that they just learned. So yeah, we're doing this through games, which most of the community members like, and it helps bridge the gap and also improves on the intergenerational gaps that we have.
That's wonderful. That's really good. So, did you want me to go next, or you want to go?
Free for you to go ahead.
Well, I think that establishing the scholarship program through the Winnipeg Foundation was one of the major things that the Barbados Association of Winnipeg has done. And I think that because most of the members are older, and the association has tried to include younger people as much as possible, that's still a struggle. So I think that if I would sort of hope for an improvement, I'd really like to see more positive sanctioning of cultural organizations by levels of government to recognize that we in the community, ACOMI, CCOM, which is the Caribbean Council of Organization in Manitoba, that we and the Barbados Association, the Ghana, Ethiopian, any organization that's out there that's culturally based, that they have a really good role to play in making a difference in the lives of our seniors and our youth and bringing them together. So that's where I am. I was all for better health care, but I think that there's a possibility of cultural groups helping with that too.
That's right.
So
yeah.
I would say for me, one thing I might say is perhaps encouragement between generations and knowing how to value one another, because from encouraging one another, you can then flourish as a community and a society. And I noticed, I did study environmental science in university, and one thing I had in common with all my other peers and professors, we all wanted to help the planet in our own little way and do what it must. But I saw that each of us doing it alone, we could not solve something so big of a problem. I knew our faculty made so much progress when we came together and formed clubs. And this did not involve just first-year students or last-year students. It involved professors, teachers, and many people from the faculty and volunteers.
that's good. That's good. So there's a lot of hope for the future then, I think, going forward, as we see these new developments happening. And those of us who are older advocating for more cultural sensitivity in delivery of programs out there to bring people together to work on the common goods, right? Yeah. So was there anything else that you wanted to add with regard to generations connecting together?
Well, in fact, I had an experience, walking downtown, not too long ago.
Oh yeah.
Somewhere, in fact, in the Skywalk, and then, one lady just bypassed me, and whilst moving, I had a tap on my shoulder, and so I turned back, and she looked at me and said, "You look so different." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "These days I don't see dark people with gray hair." Why? Because within his community, it looks like most of the elders would dye their hair from gray to black. That is, everyone wants to look young and things like that. But I was quite surprised because I've always enjoyed my gray hair, and I've loved it the way it is. I was recently in Ghana, and it commands a lot of respect between the generations, in that it shows some experience and having that knowledge to actually advise youth and things like that. Anyway.
So I really have totally been interested in how people we change our looks,
Yes.
or we change our looks to what we want and what we feel comfortable with. And aging is something that is embraced by some people, and with some people, they don't really embrace it. There are some people who are young people who are not actually as inclined to relate to somebody who is years of, like, because they feel that they wouldn't understand. So, and then on the other hand too, there are older people who say the young don't know what they're talking about. So, you know, like, we have this divide right between them. And so, but anyhow, getting back to hair and so on, we could have a whole show again. We have talked about hair before, but we could talk about hair in terms of personal choices, right?
right, yeah.
That's what I always say, personal choices. And I'm just waiting for all of mine to go gray before I go gray, not the salt and pepper. I know some people like salt and pepper, but you know, so then here's preferences, right? Funny how people associate age with knowledge. And there's a lot of knowledge among young people, a lot of knowledge that we need to have them, though, at the table in order to hear about that. But we have to be open to changing sometimes the way these, say, cultural organizations go about and decide what and what not to do. I really will want to have you back another time to talk further about generations connecting. And I think that with the two of you being a part of transitions today, and also actually assisting in our volunteer base as well, I'm very hopeful for the future, as you represent the future. Both of you represent the future. I don't go with just younger people representing the future, because we do have an aging population. It's growing and growing. It's growing faster than the younger generation. So we have to keep everybody at the table. So thank you so much for coming here and being a part of Transitions today. I want to encourage our folks at home to please consider getting onto YouTube, like our productions that we've done before, and I hope that you will find something that's your favorite and return to it several times to view it, or even see all of them that we have posted there. So thank you again, and thanks.
Thank
you.
you.
Victoria.
Thanks for having us.
And Frank.
Much appreciated.
You're welcome.